So what's the weather like? Let's start with that.
Well, right now I'm in the pit lane, which is full of celebrities. Not all of them that I recognize, I'll admit. But yeah, lots of guests that are in here right now. And the clouds are coming in. They're rolling over the hills up above us. So it was actually really nice this morning. That the forecast earlier was for rain pretty much most of the day, but certainly today being a lot cooler and likely wet at times. And then everyone woke up and it was gorgeous blue skies and sunshine and like we'd had a weekend. But as that's kind of progressed, as the day's gone on, the clouds have been rolling in, building up. It's pretty grey up above. And it does feel like it could rain at some point. But I think it's going to be one of those races where everyone is watching the sky, like hanging out the back of the pit wall with their hand in the air, trying to feel any spots of rain. I don't think it's going to be a guarantee. And what's really interesting about Monaco, I mean, Johnny can attest to this, having just been here as well, the way that you are kind of, you're right on the coast, but it's a pretty steep rise of kind of France that surrounds you. So the clouds just build up around you instantly out of nowhere. So even if it looked great 10, 15 minutes ago, suddenly it can change. So yeah, even if the radar's not showing any rain right now, there's every chance it can happen at any moment.
Well, it's such an electric feeling to be there. It's funny. We were talking yesterday, Chris, that this is the one race that all of us have been to. But the feeling at Monaco, it's just really something special, isn't it? I mean, I'm assuming that everybody around you is just electric right now. Yeah,
they are. I mean, the team members, mechanics, they're kind of trying to stay out the way a bit. They're trying to focus on the job at hand. But in Monaco, yeah, it's very different. Right now, I'll try and paint you guys a picture, but I'm walking down the pit lane, which is very tight. And you've got team members on one side all preparing. But then we're only talking 2-3 yards to my right. There's just a small, low Armco barrier and loads of guests wandering around, getting to have a look, which isn't normal at this time with where they are and how close they can be, because other guests are allowed to come into the pit lane. So it's very, very busy. And then that's overlooked by the grandstands that are opposite the garages. So you're looking out towards the harbour on this side. So as I stand and look up to the harbour, behind me is actually the grid, behind some tall pit buildings. So it's very close. Everything's on top of you. So you do feel like you're really right in the middle and everyone's staring at you. I know they're not looking at me, but they're looking at the F1 here. So yeah, it does feel very, very special.
Chris, they might be looking at you.
You're a good-looking man. Yeah, don't underrate yourself.
Poor them. They've paid a lot of money not to look at me, I can tell you that.
Jonathan Green, buddy, I want to go to you because you've probably been going here longer than all of us, and you've been here so many times. They're so special. But let's talk about why Monaco is so special.
I think something Chris just brought up, the geography of the place is the first thing. It's like being in a massive cooking bowl, because I stayed above Monaco very luckily last week. And the clouds, it's so high up on the mountain looking down that the clouds could be below you, and they are today. So where I was staying, you can't even see. But when it opens up, you are looking right down on the harbor, and everybody who lives there is looking right down on that centerpiece right at Rascasse, effectively, in the pit lane. So as Chris says, everybody's eyes are down there, and everywhere you look, every perch, if you will, one of the greatest views is looking down on Anthony Noge from the hill above the pit lane. And that's like not a free seat, but you can get there for about $100, get yourself a sandwich and just watch all the celebrities show up and all the drivers show up. And so there's the geography. But then that geography also comes into play when the cars light up too. Once those engines fire up, it's an incredible noise, because it literally bounces off the rocks, you know, off the mountain and the buildings. So you can hear from miles away. I mean, I used to stay in Menton, which is about 10 miles away. You can take a train in, and that's right on the Italian border. And you can hear when the cars fire up, and it just adds to the excitement.
It really is.
I see that we've been joined by Mr. Bob Varsha as well. Hey, Bob, how are you this morning or afternoon?
I'm doing just great, guys. You may lose me at any moment. I have to warn you, the Wi-Fi here on my ship is not the best, but everybody else is in Monaco, and I have to tell you right now, I am not. Heavy rain was predicted and lots of ocean swells, so they moved our boat over to Nice. And the idea of taking a 2-hour bus ride in traffic and sitting in the rain, which was predicted for the race, but now looks like it may not happen, and then busing home again in a wet T-shirt and shorts didn't seem like the best idea. So I gave my tickets to a couple of interns here on the ship, and hopefully they're going to enjoy the race.
Oh, that's so kind of you, Bob. I was going to say, I was looking out to the sea and I was like, which one of these yachts is yours that you're captaining right now? But
and why weren't we invited?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I can cover it from there. It's fine. Actually, funnily enough, though, I was going to say, I mean, from there would be a bit of a distance to where everything's going on, but I'm stood below McLaren right now. And the way that the setup is, because of the tight space, above the garages, they have 2 levels of extra floors. And the middle level is where the pit wall is. So you don't get a traditional pit wall that people are sat on facing out to the track. They're actually a level above the garages. It's still the same pit wall, but it's indoors. So engineers are spinning around trying to look out the window to see what's going on. But Andreas Seidel was up there, and I thought, I can't even interview him because he's about 10 feet too high for me right now. So, yeah, they're all in a slightly unusual setup here to try and cram everything in. But like Bob says, actually, logistically, it can get quite tight, a little bit claustrophobic in this place. But that does also add to kind of the feel and the prestige. I mean, the drivers right now are walking across a bridge from the paddock, which is near the harbour, goes over Raskas, the final corner, and down into the pit lane. And when they appear in the pit lane, there's VIPs in the bar that they're walking right by. They're all screaming at them and trying to take photos. It's just so unique.
Well, I know that that we've got some clips from some of the drivers yesterday, and you know, qualifying was not disappointing for Monaco, and with Charles Leclerc, the hometown boy, it's really exciting. And I've got a note from the producer. We're going to hold off on the clips for just a moment here, but let's talk about qualifying a little bit, gentlemen. Jonathan, what about Charles Leclerc? He's a Monegasque. He grew up in Monaco and on pole, a dream, right?
It absolutely is. And I mean, there's been so few. I mean, Louis Chiron won the race back in 33. Think about that. They first started racing around these streets in 1929. And so you can look through the history books all you like. You won't find many Monegasques. And so finally, it's all come together. There's been some great French drivers, including Olivier Panis, who won in the rain. We'll talk about that if it rains. And there's been some, you know, Alain Prost, of course, has had his time here, but no actual Monegasque-born driver has had the success, and nor has Charles Leclerc. He's had terrible luck, including Formula 2 and other events. And of course, was pole here last time, didn't get to race, and he has yet to win it. So today could be a huge day for the Automobile Club de Monaco to celebrate finally a Monegasque winning. So it's got that real air of anticipation, and we were robbed in some ways of a lap of the ages. I think the lap record is Lewis Hamilton's in terms of outright pace. But I mean, I think Charles was on that. He was 4/10 up when the red flag came up. So he was on for a miracle lap yesterday.
Yeah, you know, very impressive, very impressive. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at him right now. The interest around him down at Ferrari is massive, as you've just said, because he's the home favorite. Like, you can't really see into his garage very easily the amount of people that are trying to get a view, all the guests that have come down here or the TV crews that are standing outside. But he's just doing his laces up by putting a foot up on his front suspension. It's quite interesting to see. I wouldn't want to touch the car, just with the luck he's had here, which I'm sure we're going to move on to, or the lack of it. I would be going nowhere near that car for risk of doing some sort of damage, but he's just climbing in right now.
Yeah, I tell you, the thing that you know, is extra special for me around Charles is he didn't come from this this crazy wealth that exists in Monaco. His mother is a house cleaner, and so, you know, it's still even more romantic, if you will, that he's a hometown kid. He you know, he didn't have the silver spoon growing up.
Well, he gives a lot of praise to Jules Bianchi as well, where he says that while Charles was karting, he was kind of running out of money and it didn't look like he was going to go much further, but he was being kind of mentored by Jules, who was from Nice. And Jules then spoke to Nicholas Todd, who was helping sponsor him and helping his career. And Nicholas then helped Charles's career. So that's how he ended up as well with the links to Ferrari. So like you said, you know, these are people that need, you know, it's an expensive sport, but someone needs to help them somewhere. And it's not always from, you know, a parent or family or a certain sponsor. It's sometimes people already within the sport who see talent.
Let's dwell on Louis Chiron for a moment. There's only been 4 Monaco-born drivers in the series: Louis Chiron, Olivier Beretta, Charles Leclerc, and some guy none of us have ever heard of. So let's not worry about that. Chiron actually won the race in 1931. He helped design the course for the first race in 29, and he couldn't drive in it because he had already signed a deal to race in the Indianapolis 500.
That's right.
So he wasn't even present. The next year, he finished second in 1930, and then he won it. And in 1955, he became the oldest man ever to start a Grand Prix, a Formula One World Championship Grand Prix, at the age of 55.
Well, you know what? Let's go and hear from Charles Leclerc right now after his pole yesterday.
He's a quiet guy.
Yeah, it feels amazing. Obviously, the first lap was good, was really good. I mean, I started pushing a bit more in Q3, but the second lap in Q3 was, I think, one of the best laps I've done in qualifying. And unfortunately, I couldn't finish it, but it was really, really good. And the rear was moving a lot. I was nearly losing it at every corners, but yeah, it felt particularly good.
There's no better place to start in Monaco. Overtaking here is very difficult. How are you feeling about tomorrow and your chances of hopefully winning your home race?
I'm feeling good. Yeah, everything has gone smooth until now, so I hope it will also be the case tomorrow. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. I don't think about the past. I just focus on the future. So I will focus on my own job for tomorrow, and hopefully we'll have a smooth race.
You obviously didn't get the chance to take up your spot last year. Is it particularly exciting to get that chance this year?
Yeah, definitely, because last year I did the pole position, but I didn't start the race. So yeah, let's see how it goes tomorrow.
Wow. What, by the way, and what a fantastic lap. And I mean, when he hit that lap, it was almost a half a second faster than everybody up to that point, including his own time, but still ended up 2.5 tenths ahead of everybody. But Jonathan, what did you think of that lap?
Oh, I mean, it was sensational. And I've just been watching ESPN. They just showed the lap that I was commentating on 2 weeks ago, where he was driving a Niki Lauda Ferrari and threw it into the wall at Rascasse. Not his fault, I may add. So his bad luck has continued up to 2 weeks ago. Yeah, yesterday was sensational. And, you know, he could be overawed by the situation. He really could. The whole of the Principality, and I mean, anybody lives there, and there's a bunch of motor racing drivers and two-wheel guys as well. So it's a motor racing town. I mean, Nico Rosberg is effectively a wannabe Monegasque, of course. Won it 3 times in a row. He lives there. He's doing the commentary today. You know, all the greats in the past have been there. So there's a lot of pressure on. Like I said, he drove Niki Lauda's Ferrari there a couple of weeks ago and threw it into the wall, but nothing's fault because the brakes went. But you know, he put it all together yesterday, put all that behind him, and all the chatter and the viral videos and all the rest of it, and nailed it.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure around him as a home race, and someone actually who knows about pressure with your home race and winning your home race is Felipe Massa, who we always remember those iconic scenes on the podium in Interlagos. And Felipe, we're just talking about Charles Leclerc and the fact that he's finally on pole and looks like he'll start his home race from pole. What's it like as a driver when you know you've got a huge amount of home support behind you? Does it add to the pressure?
Yes and no. I mean, it's always important when you understand the car 100% and the track. But when you arrive here in the home Grand Prix and you feel the energy, from your people, your fans, it gives you a extra energy, extra power. And I'm sure Charles has everything in mind. He's pretty strong on this track during all of the sessions, qualifying. He was going even to improve his lap time in a massive way on the second set of tires in the Q3, just before that crash. And but it's so important, just to put everything together and have the energy from the people. It's a long race. It's difficult, but he has the car, he has the pace, he's really in the right moment, of his career. Also, all of the race he did this year, no mistakes. And I really hope he has the same in the home Grand Prix here in Monaco, which can bring him the victory. and it will be part of the history if you win here in Monaco.
Yeah, it'd be incredible. And there looks like there could be some rain around, but if there's not, normally this race is, I don't want to say boring, but it's hard to overtake. What's it like from a concentration point of view for a driver for 78 laps?
Yeah, you need to be concentrated all the time. You need to be really, relaxed on the same time. Because, I mean, any mistake, I would try too much, I would be, 10 laps in the qualifying, can really bring you the possibility to make a mistake. And here in Monaco is a race that it needs to be precise. All the moment, understanding the strategy, understanding the car, the pace and the tires, but also having the right strategy, because maybe a safety car can happen here. Even if it's a boring race, sometimes everything changes with the safety car.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see if we get any of those today. Felipe, thank you very much for your time. Enjoyed the race. That's Felipe Massa. He's here working with Formula One and just waiting to head onto the grid, and I'm going to follow him out there.
Nice, and nothing like an 11 race winning Formula One driver to get his opinion on this, Chris. But hey, guys, we got to take a break. Before we do, CrowdStrike presents Driven in 60. Our digital world is more than just interconnected, it's interdependent. And because of that, security is a top concern for every organization. The Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team knows they're a potential target for a host of digital attacks, which is why they leverage the CrowdStrike Falcon platform to deploy end-to-end security solutions. CrowdStrike revolutionized cybersecurity by harnessing the speed and power of the cloud to identify and stop the most sophisticated cyber attacks. Our cloud-native Falcon platform protects and defends organizations against increasingly complex threats, so you can have the peace of mind to focus on your business momentum, not what's trying to stop it. That's protection that powers you. To learn more and to try CrowdStrike Falcon free today, visit crowdstrike.com/XM. All right, coming up, we have more clips from some of the drivers after qualifying and more from Chris Medland on the grid in Monaco. You're listening to Speed City F1. Back after this.
Hello, I'm Jenny Gow from BBC F1. You are listening to Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
All right, welcome back to Speed City. We are about 40 minutes from the Formula One Monaco Grand Prix. Very excited about this special day in Formula One. Les, I see you rubbing your hands together, how excited you are. I'm the same way. I think everybody is. And, of course, we got Bob Varsha and Jonathan Green and Chris Medland. And Chris is out on the pit lane and grid area. Chris, what are you seeing right now?
Yeah, I've just made my way down to the grid itself because the pit lane's open. So if I was still in there, I'd get run over. And it's starting to get busy. So we've got it's a bit strange in Monaco. Like the grandstands are only like 2 rows deep or 3 rows deep under apartment blocks and things. They just cram in a few seats wherever they can. But those are full. A few guests are starting to arrive on the grid. There's quite a few VIPs expected today, but how many of them are in yet is remaining to be seen. I see Patrick Dempsey at the moment doing an interview with Brazilian TV. So that's because we stole Felipe Massa. I think that's why they've stolen Patrick Dempsey from us. But yeah, the grid's now open, so the cars are making their way out onto the grid. And it's so tight here, so tight. The pit lane, I am probably about 10 yards from where they're trying to squeeze their way through between the barriers out onto the track. And between me and there's 3 temporary buildings that have been put up. There's a big automobile club, the Monaco building that's at the end of the pit lane that allows guests to see quite a lot of the circuit. So much stuff logistically just gets crammed into every last inch. It's very, very impressive. But now, as Johnny said earlier in the show, we've got that sound. It's just so cool. The sound of F1 cars echoing off the buildings, which are crammed with people just hanging out over balconies. Every single balcony I can see is full of people trying to get a view. And most of them have Charles Leclerc banners.
Yeah, the hometown boy. Hey, Les Kaiser, it was only a couple of years since you were there. The balconies, I think you even did part of the show from one of those balconies, didn't you?
I did. I absolutely did. When you see the Razkaz view from coming under the banner or the gantry, you'll look up on that kind of beige-colored building, and there's a balcony with wrought iron railing on it, and that's where I was with Ms. Walker.
That's right. Well, Jonathan, I want to ask you, I know like we said, you've been there many times, but but just give us some more impressions of what it's like to be part of this history, because you've been there so many times.
We may have lost him a bit there.
Oh,
Hey,
I think
to share a little bit more on that. Yeah, where Chris is.
I'm with you.
Go for it, Johnny.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think Felipe Massa put his finger on it just a moment ago when he said, you know, the whole thing with Monaco, it's such a lottery because of the way the track is, and if it rains, even more so. You can't predict it. It's not like any other motor racing. You can't predict what's going to happen. And generally speaking, if you get the pole, then you really are odds on to win it if nothing else goes wrong, and that's easy to say. But the point is, it's being in the history books, and that has been the case all the way back to 1929, because it's the same track. It hasn't really changed. I mean, yeah, there are nuances here and there, and there's changes to chicanes, and obviously the barriers are up. You know, so the changes have been tiny, incremental, not to the track itself. So you're putting yourself in the history books if you can be one of those men or women that could win the Monaco Grand Prix. And so few have done it. And the guys that have done it with gusto, like Graham Hill, like Alain Prost, and like Ayrton Senna, you know, they're never going to be forgotten in the history of this sport. You know, so for Charles to pull it off today would be just incredible.
Hey, and the one other.
Can I add to that? You hear a lot of people saying, well, it's not a great race. It's an anachronism. It shouldn't be there. You ever hear a driver say that?
No.
Hell no. They all want to win this race. They all know it's special. It's shorter than the average Grand Prix, way more difficult than the average Grand Prix, but you don't have to have a million overtakes to put on a great race. This is a driving challenge like no other in the sport. And the idea that Monaco somehow loses its place in Formula One, just to me, you know, rips the soul out of the sport. It is so intrinsic to the nature of Formula One, having been there since the beginning and beyond.
Yeah. Somebody could question, why is this such a great race today, on today's basis, compared to the past? And I get it. It's more difficult. It's still more difficult to pass. But in the past, the F1 cars were smaller. There was a lot more action on track, passing and whatnot. So actually, I mean, the difficulty rating has gone way up. And certainly the scenery is just beyond amazing.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, one of the reasons I think it's been questioned, I've been speaking to F1 about it this week, and part of it isn't about the racing from F1's point of view. It's about what it kind of allows them to do and offers. Monaco kind of knew how important it was to Formula One and you know, had a lot of strength. There was a lot of concessions made to have this race here. It didn't really pay much a race hosting fee, got to call its own shots a little bit. And now Formula One's going, no, we need you to fall in line with the way we do things everywhere. Everywhere else does it. We've got a lot of races that are exciting, that are glamorous, that are glitzy. Like you need to kind of play our game a little bit more. You know, one just description I can give you. I'm stood in the middle of the grid right now, and if I look towards turn one, there's a bridge over the circuit, and it's got a massive Tag Heuer sponsorship that says, I think it says the official watch of the Monaco Grand Prix. The start lights are getting in my way for the strap line. I'm not trying to advertise them, but they're not an F1 sponsor. Rolex is the F1 watch sponsor, and if I turn around, that's the bridge that's over about 20th place on the grid. So Formula One come here and go, hang on, we've got to deal with a watch sponsor that is really not happy to see another watch sponsor advertising for free. But Monaco gets to do that for itself because it owns a bit of advertising space. Those little things are the things that are annoying Formula One. It's kind of, it's all these little additions. I mean, some people who've watched the TV coverage, the direction's not great because that's done locally rather than by Formula One's own world feed. So all those little things frustrate Formula One, and they're saying, look, we need these changes and we're not going to be held hostage by you. We can drop you if we want to. We've got other good races. I don't think it'll happen. I think it looks like they're going to reach a compromise. But it's more about that, because if you guys have just explained brilliantly, the history, the driving challenge, all of that, I think people kind of accept as a one-off. Qualifying is spectacular. The race is normally dull unless it rains or there's a safety car at the right time or an incident. But that's okay for 1 out of 22, 23 races. They just need everything else to kind of fit with the way Formula One wants to work.
Good point.
And let's not forget, you know, Formula One is so much about going from continent to continent, from country to country, and the history and the culture. And Monaco is just steeped in all of that, and is such a you can just feel it when you get off the train and arrive in Monaco. You can just feel all of that. And just wandering up through there, it's just an amazing, special place. And I just really can't see that Formula One would try to take this away. And Bob, let's talk a little bit about what is going on. We've alluded to, but we haven't really said what they're trying to do, and a little bit more detail about that.
About what? Who's trying to do? Sorry.
About how the race is potentially endangered from coming back here.
Well, I'm not sure that's the truth, to be honest. I've tried to put it as succinctly as possible. I think that's a rumor that's being floated because people want to get something out of someone else. And it usually has to deal with money. And people have to understand that. I mean, look at Miami. Miami was brand new, first time race. It was a spectacle. But it's a different spectacle than Monaco is. Those grandstands are packed, as Chris was saying. Every available space for a seat has got a seat, and every available seat has a fanny in it. The boats are all offshore, despite the dire weather predictions. The buses are coming in. The streets are full. You walk down Grimaldi Street, and the kiosks are there, and they're selling everything under the sun, and there's a bazillion kinds of souvenirs to be had, and people are in the grandstands and they're just digging it. All ages, coming from all over. It's just such a fabulous event. I just can't conceive why you would throw this away, because the track is a little shorter and it's a little more difficult to pass. As I said, the drivers all treasure the challenge, but to hear people bitch about, it's too tough. I mean, that's like pro golfers saying, the first cut was a little too deep. This course is hard. Well, sure. We all want to see a golfer go out there and have as hard a time as I do when I go to my local municipal course and I
we may be losing Bob's Wi-Fi on the cruise ship. So, well, gentlemen, let's go ahead and get ready for the race. Coming up next, we've got some more clips from some of the drivers, and we're going to go walk through the grid. And you're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM, back after these messages.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
All right, welcome back to the show. We're going to go straight back out to Chris Medland out on the grid in Monaco. Chris, what do you see?
I see a nervous-looking Christian Horner looking up at the skies right now, and I'm just going to see if he's up for a chat, but this is a very busy grid. He is up for a chat, so I'm just going to jump in there. Christian, very, very quickly. Firstly, I just saw you looking up to the skies. Nervous about any rain? Feels like a bit's falling, maybe.
Look, it's gone cooler. There's the odd spot around. So that just adds to the tension of a Monaco grid.
Well, and yeah, I mean, it's rammed in here, but that sort of variable, do you want that today because you've got two Ferraris ahead of you? Do you need something like that to change this order?
I think in the normal circumstances, they've got a big advantage with the grid position, but we just need to work well as a team today to try and take that challenge to them.
And speaking of, I mean, the question did come to Checo. He's starting ahead of Max because of the way qualifying panned out. I mean, Max is the lead contender in the championship right now. We saw what happened in Barcelona with those circumstances. Has there been discussions about what you do here? How are you going to play that?
Not only as a team, I mean, Checo's still within a race win of the championship lead, so he's still very much in the championship. But of course, our opponent today is mainly Ferrari, and strategically we got to be sharp today, and who knows what the weather's going to do.
Yeah, we'll keep our eyes on the skies. Christian, thank you very much for your time. Good luck today. Christian Horner there, getting ready for the race. He does look a bit nervous. I think that this race can get away from you very, very quickly. If it goes wrong, it can go wrong in an instant, and there's no coming back from it if you're out of position. So I think that's one of the reasons why you see a lot of nervous faces. And I don't know how happy some people are with how busy this gets. I mean, I know we don't have our eyes on right now, and I'm having to describe this to you guys, but it is so packed on the grid. so busy, and there's so many people around trying to get photos, trying to get interviews. Patrick Dempsey's just hugging someone that he's met. There are spots of rain falling, just a few, as the teams fire up their cars. I've just had a few pretty solid ones hit me, actually, so this could get very, very exciting indeed. And I'm going to see if Patrick Dempsey would be up for a quick question or two once he's done. He's always got a smile on his face. It's very, very impressive. I'm just going to see. Patrick, sorry to interrupt. Chris Medland here with SiriusXM and Speed City Broadcasting. Firstly, I mean, it's rammed here on the grid, isn't it? How much do you enjoy the adrenaline of being this close to F1 cars?
Oh, it's really great. You know, this is going to be what it's going to be like on the track. There's not a lot of room to move around. So trying to overtake someone here, you're always bumping into somebody, and the atmosphere is spectacular. We got a little bit of weather coming in, so that could add to the drama, but exciting to be here.
Well, how does it compare for you, obviously, to something like Le Mans? Like you've raced in some of the most iconic races. What's this grid like?
Oh, it's like that. I mean, you have the big three, right? You have Le Mans, of course, which is an amazing race in itself. Great, rich history. The same here in Monaco. And you think of all of the spirits that have come around this track that are alive and well here. Watch your back. And then you've got Indy that's happening at the end of the day. So there's just nothing like these old tracks. They just have a feeling to them. There's a soul to them, and it would be a shame to lose them.
Yeah, I mean, you can't get to Indy, but you're going to be watching that later?
I'll be watching it later, yes.
And pick for a win here. I mean, Charles on pole, is that who you're rooting for? Have you got a favourite?
Well, Charles is a hometown boy, so this place will just erupt if he does it. He's had such a tough time here. You know, as a sportsman, it would be nice to see him break through and win it. And I think if he does do that, he's going to take that momentum, and it's going to be hard to beat for the championship. Although Max is very smart, very cool, calm, and collected, I think a lot of confidence from winning the championship. So all he's got to do is stay in touch, get the points, and move to the next race, not do anything crazy, and I think he'll do that. I think the question is going to be the strategy, and then if we're going to have any incidents.
Well, we will see. Here's Martin Brundle for you. I've been shoved out the way by Sky, but admittedly, they're waiting very patiently, so no kicking that time.
Chris, get your elbows out, buddy.
Make sure he knows who that guy is.
You know what? I was just thinking, we had Christian Horner on. Have you guys looked at the numbers this weekend where Checo was faster than Max virtually every session throughout the weekend? That was fascinating, wasn't it, Jonathan?
Yeah, no question. I mean, you know, you could argue that Perez actually should be further up the board. But Perez is a guy to watch today. He's unfettered. And there's no question that he has been, of the Red Bull 2, Verstappen has looked a little off for a guy who won it last year. And Perez has looked very much the man to beat. Well,
I built a spreadsheet. I know that'll surprise you guys. I'm just looking at all of the numbers from Checo, and in FP1 he was faster, FP2 he was faster, FP3 he was faster, and in qualifying he was faster in Q2 and Q3. So the entire weekend, the only time that Max was faster was in Q1. So yeah, but I mean, we know he's a great driver, but Jonathan, that would be interesting to. I mean, we never know if we get a little rain, anybody could win.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I mentioned Olivier Panis that back in 1996. Believe it or not, on that day, only 3 drivers finished. So we only had enough drivers to fill the podium. And Olivier Panis was there at the right time in the right place. All the others fell by the wayside, and Panis won his one and only race, the Frenchman.
All right. Well, it looks like we got Bob Varsha back. Mr. Varsha, are you prepared on the cruise ship to give us a rundown of the grid?
Put the champagne down.
Well, I'll give it a try. If I drop out, bear with me and I'll hook back up again. So let's get going. On the pole for the 14th time in his career, matching Max Verstappen, and the 3rd consecutive race, Charles Leclerc for Ferrari, who, as Jonathan pointed out, has never finished a race in 5 attempts here in his home country. Next to him, on an all-Ferrari front row, Carlos Sainz. And for the 2nd straight race, Russell has out-qualified his world champion teammate. Speaking of world champions, 2-time champ Fernando Alonso, the first of the Alpines, ties to his best qualifying of 2022. Next to him, 8-time world champ Lewis Hamilton was never a factor this weekend, really, and he starts for the second year outside the top 6. On row 5 to the inside, Sebastian Vettel with 4 world championships, 13th straight Q3 appearance in Monaco for Vettel. Next to him, Esteban Ocon in the second of the Alpines. On row 6, Yuki Tsunoda outqualified his teammate Pierre Gasly for the 3rd time this season in the Alpha Tauris, and that despite the fact that he hit the wall and brought out a red flag. Outside row 6, Valtteri Bottas, who was out in the Q2 session for the 2nd time since all the way back in 2017. On row 7 to the inside, K-Mag, Kevin Magnussen, his first Q2 elimination this year. The only other times he was eliminated in Q1 or went all the way to Q3. Next to him, Daniel Ricciardo, starting 14th, where Olivier Panis won from in 1996, as Jonathan mentioned. And there are strong rumors in Monaco this weekend that Daniel Ricciardo may be coming to the end of his string in Formula One. Back to row 8, Mick Schumacher on the inside for Haas. To the outside, Alex Albon, who's wearing his red hair, which you may know is showing his support of a Thai orphanage of some 2,500 orphans that was organized by the brother of his team principal. On row 9, to the inside, the aforementioned Pierre Gasly, his first Q1 elimination in Monaco in his career, and he was not happy with it. To the outside, Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin, who's been out in Q1 4 out of 5 times here, but he can comfort himself because he can have his choice of rooms. His father's yacht is parked out on the quay, and it is a monster. On row 10, to the inside, Nick Latifi, 4th straight 19th place start this season. Next to him, Guan Yu Zhou, who's had a tough introduction to Monaco for the first time, a full 1.2 seconds slower than Latifi, and his first appearance on a Formula One grid as the caboose. So there you have it.
Fantastic, Mr. Varsha. Thank you very much. Let's check back out with Chris Medland and see what's going on in Monaco. Chris, what's happening now?
Right now, I am trying to annoy Toto Wolff, who's introducing a few guests on the grid, which is a very important part of the Monaco Grand Prix, I must admit. It's a lot of B2B stuff goes on, and important people meet important people. He's just introduced a few and is laughing with them. So I'm going to try and interrupt when I'm not going to cost him a multi-million-pound sponsorship deal or something similar. But Toto's back here, stood next to George Russell's car. It's still getting a little bit darker. The few spots of rain that fell earlier seem to have stopped. But, I mean, that's how quickly it will just happen, and people are going to panic if that does happen. But we'll have to see if that's something that then affects the race strategy at the start, who starts on which tyre, and whether they then want to go for the softer compound compared to the medium or the harder one, because that can get quite challenging if you're on the harder compound at the start and there's sprinkles of rain. So we'll have to wait and see. But I'm just going to see if Toto very briefly jump in there. Toto, thanks for taking a second to chat to us. By George's car, how impressed you've been with the way George has handled this weekend? Because the car doesn't look all that competitive here, does it?
No, the car is a handful. It's too stiff, unpredictable, and doesn't give the driver confidence. And around here, that's what you need. Well, as we stand here, though, we're getting wet. It's starting to rain. Is that something that you guys want? Do you think your car be more competitive in the wet? Yeah, that's where we are starting 6 and 8 rain, and a bit of chaos would be good. And then do you just go for pick up a few points here and look to other races to really continue your comeback? Because you looked so good last week in Barcelona. Yeah, I think we need a more normal racetrack layout to learn and to further improve. And at the moment, this isn't reflective of what the car has, the potential it has. Well, we'll see how it goes to you in this rain as it falls. Toto, thank you very much for your time. There we go. It is starting to rain here. I think people are grabbing a few umbrellas. There's a few VIPs here too that are actually loving the fact that it's raining, because they know that makes it exciting. And I'm not joking. I'm going to try and keep this colour coming to you guys, because it's starting to properly rain. I mean, we had a few spots earlier. These are heavy enough that I think people will start reaching for umbrellas. We'll start thinking, could this impact Esteban Ocon's walking past me. All the drivers are coming by now, and they're going to be thinking this rain could really, really mix things up. So they've got their game faces on, because this could change absolutely everything. In fact, I might try cheekily to walk and talk with Kevin Magnussen if he's too much in the zone. These guys need to get on it right now. Rain is properly falling, and it's going to give opportunities to some of the guys at the back.
Wow. Well, Chris, we're going to sneak in our last break. Let's do that really quick, and when we come back, we'll get more from Chris on the grid. Listen to Speed City back after these messages.
Hello to everyone. This is Gunther Steiner. This is Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
The Speed City F1 pre-race show on SiriusXM is brought to you by CrowdStrike. Stop today's most sophisticated cyber attacks at the office, the racetrack, and everywhere in between. Learn more at crowdstrike.com/XM. All right, we're going to go straight back out to Chris Medland on the grid in Monaco. Chris, what's happening with the rain, the tires? What's going on? We need to know.
Yeah, the rain's still falling here. I just managed to grab Andrea Seidel quickly for a word while we're in a break. And he said he's prepared because he already had his raincoat on, which was true. He was fine. But he said they've gotten to the 5-minute warning, so they've got another 5 minutes, so they have to choose which tyres they want to start this race on. Now, the rain right now is fairly light, but it's a steady drizzle. And you've got engineers like looking at Kyron Pilbeam and Alan Permain here from Alpine, and they're stood in front of Fernando Alonso's car, and they're looking at the track surface and how wet it's getting and slippy it's getting. And it is so greasy. Right here on the grid, it's very, very smooth asphalt. And I was walking back when I was chatting to Andrea Seidel, and you walk across a pedestrian crossing, you know, some white painted lines, and they're even slippier. So I think we're going to see people on intermediates. I don't think anyone's going to be able to risk the slicks. There's every chance you're going to go straight on. The rain is not easing up. If anything, it's getting harder. I'm actually getting properly wet here, which I'm more than happy to do. This is great. But this is changing everything. With less than 10 minutes to go, you can just see them trying to make the call. And even as I speak to you now, it's getting heavier and heavier. This is going to be a wet start. In fact, you never know, but this could be one where they might end up delaying the start. So engineers at Matteo Binotto's here looking at what Red Bull are doing. He's watching their tyres. I'm at Red Bull where they're looking at soft, slick tyres right now. They're checking whether they're going to use them. And I'm going to try and get a read from Matteo Binotto about whether you go slick or if you go into. He seems to think, no, he doesn't seem to think slick right now. The slicks are coming off the Red Bull. So it's all scrabbling around. I'm going to have to make sure I don't get smacked by a tyre and head back into the pit lane. But this is great.
Jonathan Green, this is exactly how we scripted it, right? The rain 10 minutes before the race.
Absolutely. This is exactly what Monaco is all about. And I tell you what, the pressure is truly on Charles Leclerc now. Absolutely.
We have the best producers. Yeah.
Bob, what do you think? Excited for the rain?
Oh, absolutely. I agree with everyone. It's going to be spectacular. We'll find out who the real Rainmeisters are. And it's so easy to make a mistake on this course that I think, attrition is really going to tell the tale of this race. Yeah, the pressure's on Charles Leclerc, but I sense a different driver in him now since the disappointment of last year. I think Leclerc is going to be all right up front.
I agree.
But Jonathan, isn't this what Bob just said? The Rainmeisters. I mean, this is, you talk about driver skill. Monaco in the rain?
Yeah, I mean, this is truly what they relish, to be honest. I mean, I know deep down, most racing drivers would say, bring it on, because they want to be tested to the very limit. And I mean, Ayrton Senna won this race 6 times. He actually went back to his apartment back in 1988 because he crashed at Portier, where you saw the crash yesterday. And he was leading at the time, and he was so disappointing. He went and sulked for a whole 24 hours. But that's what it means. And even the greats have fallen here. So, you just cannot predict it, and anything can go wrong.
And very quickly, I've got Liam Cunningham here because he's trying to shelter from the rain. He's got a lovely hat on that's keeping your head dry. But how exciting is this? You can see everyone running around and scrambling as the rain falls.
I'm loving it. I've been watching the app, all week, waiting for rain, and it's been unreliable. And I'm looking to send, and the apps are saying 10 o'clock tonight. And I went, nah, I'm from Ireland. I know rain. And I knew I was going to come. Somebody said, I talked to Checo actually, and he said towards the end of the race, and I went, yeah, he's wrong. And I felt the first drop and went, yep. The old Irish DNA came good.
Well, I'm going to get you on the pit walls. They're going to need you for strategy. Yes, but you've been to a number of Formula 1 races. Have you ever been this excited before the start of one?
For Monaco, some of the best races I've ever seen is Monaco in the rain. It's wonderful. Real talent required. Danger around. It's literally every corner. This could be magnificent.
Just finally then, where's your money?
I'd love to see Leclerc. I'm a bit of a romantic. It's his home race.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing if that happens. Thank you very much for your time, Liam. Thank you. That was Liam Cunningham there, who was he just looked so excited in the pit lane, so I had to ask him.
Oh, what a great accent he's got.
Isn't it just? Yeah, it's a beauty. And he's right. Like anyone
one
from
of the
British
things
Isles has a good feel for rain.
One other thing I wanted to mention was I was looking at the Pirelli data. Very few guys have fresh sets of the soft tire or even the medium tire for that matter. There's very few fresh sets up and down the pit lane out there, unless for some reason you weren't able to get on track at all earlier on the weekend. So if we get a wet start and then a dry line forming, then what do? You want endurance in the tire, but you've already taken some of that endurance away by using that tire. And you're also going to need grip when that dry line starts to form. I think we're going to see more than one pit stop per team during this race.
Oh, Bob, you set it up absolutely perfectly, because guess what? It's just stopped raining. As I'm walking out of the pit lane, we've got 5 minutes. So for anyone who can see a TV screen, 5-minute warning. Drivers would have had to choose their tyres now, or the teams would have done it for them. I imagine they went for intermediates because I can see the track surface and it is wet, but it's dry in places that are covered where there's bridges and a bit of overhang. So it's not soaking everywhere, but it's too wet to be on slicks. I'm sure of that, but it's still warm enough. I've just moved quickly to get off out the pit lane, and I'm warm. So I don't think it'll take that long to start to dry out once we get some running. So you're right, they're going to be having to make those calls very, very early as well, because if you get the timing right, you get on to, say, the hard tyre, which will be difficult in wet conditions, but might get you to the end of the race, or at least give you opportunities to wait and see how strategy plays out. And you could make up a load of positions. And for someone starting, say, 5th, 6th, think of a Lando Norris or a George Russell who maybe takes a gamble. Could be something on here today.
What about Hamilton and Alonso taking a gamble?
Well, the main thing is they've got to stay away from each other at the start. But after that, I suppose Hamilton, it might be worth taking a gamble. He's not had great luck around here. He's not had great luck all season. But whether that then puts him off risking it because things just haven't gone his way remains to be seen. But Fernando, I think you're right. I think he's the one who would be like, yeah, why not? He's not scored that many points, but he's performed well this year. And, he's a man for a big occasion. So they're also ones that you're right. I think that's what's interesting. Ferrari and Red Bull, both cars at the front, both can kind of split strategies, but they've both got a lot to lose from there. Whereas behind them, there's some teams, Mercedes in particular, actually, with what Toto Wolff just said to us. They're kind of out of the mix right now. This is a weekend they weren't going to get anything big from. Why not risk it? It's not like they're leading the championship and have to be defensive. They can go aggressive.
I was kind of on that same thought process for Hamilton. It's like, you got nothing to lose. You say the car is slow. Well, drive slower in the rain. Might be what the recipe is for today.
Yeah, and I think that Lewis Hamilton will definitely be thinking, Russell as well, if that chassis is as stiff as Toto just described, then get some slicks on and take a gamble and use your own spidey sense to get round what is, a treacherous course at the best of times. But I do think that Hamilton has got nothing to lose. He's had a terrible season so far. He needs something to give him something, a bit of a fill-up.
Well, Chris is absolutely right. This could not be a better scenario. The drying track right now with the rain stopping, everybody having chosen their tires already. This could really be a crazy fun start. Hey, Bob, what do you think of, what's your favorite Monaco in the rain?
Probably that 96 race where a wet track drying was involved in all those cars dropping out. As Jonathan mentioned, only 7 classified finishers, only 3 saw the full distance, led by Olivier Panis, who's now a driver manager. And in his long career, he won 1 race, and it was Monaco. And in my chats here on the ship, I made the point that there are a few other guys that only won 1 race in their career. And if that's all you got, Monaco's the one you want to win.
And just to jump in, though, we're going to be waiting a little bit longer to find out who's going to win this one, because the FIA race controllers said the start procedure has been suspended because of the timing of that rain. And when it hit and everyone's scrabbling around, not sure on the conditions, they've suspended the start to make sure that everyone's got enough time to put the right tyres on, to make a call, because there's danger that you've got to factor in as well. And if somebody was, say, on slicks in this wet, that would be dangerous. So I think they may well have said that it's going to be a wet start and therefore everyone has to be on some form of wet tyre. But that changes the procedure at the start. So I don't see a new start time at the moment on the race control message. It just says the start procedure has been suspended. So a little bit of a delay.
We don't know how long that's going to be, Chris.
Not at the moment. I'm trying to find a race control screen actually, because I'm out in the paddock still, just dodging puddles. And it's not too bad. It's not loads of standing water, but it's definitely wet. So wet that they've got to make it a wet tyre start. But I'm just looking for the right sort of timing screen that will tell me if they've given an actual start time.
Yeah, I'm trying to check social and everything else to see, but I don't see any messages saying for sure what time.
Here we go now.
1909 local time.
Exactly. So 10 minutes from now,
1509.
we'll get the formation lap.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Chris, so has the rain completely stopped right now?
Yeah, I mean, now we're back to just the odd 1 or 2 drops. You know, the kind of thing that makes you go, oh, is it about to start to rain? So this was the stuff that we kind of had early on the grid, and it wasn't too clear if it was going to properly rain or not. So this isn't doing anything for the track conditions. This isn't changing it. If anything, right now it will be slowly drying. But I mean, there's standing water in places here in the paddock. There's a lot of water in the harbour, obviously, but between here and the track as well, they've got plenty of greasy sections that mean I think it's got to be a wet weather start.
All right, so it sounds like we're going to stay with you guys for a few minutes instead of going straight out to the BBC team. So we got a few more minutes, and we'll see what's going on. But, well, Jonathan, okay, so you're a team manager. I
was just thinking that.
Yeah, give me some strategy, my friend.
Well, I tell you what, I'm looking quite closely at Perez and Verstappen. We know what Verstappen could do in the wet. Perez is pretty damn handy too. And I wonder if you're going to try to beat the front row block out of Ferrari, you've got to change strategy between the 2 Red Bulls. So what do? You let's say you put Perez, who's further up the grid, but only by a couple of inches, and you put him on the intermediates, which is the wets, right? And that's the sort of conservative strategy. But then you might turn around to Verstappen and say, okay, let's take a risk here, because I think it's going to dry out within a lap or 2, and he's going to be all over the Ferraris and his teammate if he's on slicks, or if he's on, if he's basically on the least of the wet tires, because you could go full wets as well. But what I'm saying is that would be my strategy call for Christian, would be to say, let's use Perez as the hare, and let's keep Verstappen, in a position to take advantage if it dries out.
Mm. Hey, and
so we've had confirmation now. Sorry, just to say that everyone's on the intermediate tire for the start. It seems to be almost like an FIA delay, just to make sure that they're ready for this, and they're going to do the formation lap behind the safety car, not the start necessarily, but the formation lap will be started behind the safety car. The drivers will follow it just to get a feel for the conditions, and a safety car to check conditions. And then it's likely, if it all goes smoothly, safety car will then pull into the pit lane, while Charles Leclerc can then take up position on the grid in first place, and we will have a normal racing start just on intermediate tyres.
Hey, Chris.
Then my strategy holds true, because I would say that leave Perez out there and bring Verstappen in immediately onto dries as soon as it starts to dry.
Yeah. And let's not forget, gentlemen, they don't have the tool that they have a lot of times that they can rely on, and that's radar, because it's so crazy in Monaco. Like Chris was saying earlier, you can't really rely on that tool, so we don't know what's going to happen. And I am looking at the television coverage right now too, and like Chris said, formation lap's going to be started behind the safety car. We don't know about the race yet, but
well, there's a reason. I've just found out the reason from that is that the teams are expecting heavy rain soon. I'm looking around. It doesn't look massively different to what we had on the grid, but there's low clouds, dark clouds around, and Bottas has been told that there's heavy rain coming. So I think the FIA have gone, well, if we're on the formation lap, which is still scheduled to start in, 6 minutes. But if we're on the formation lap and it hammers it down, you can't start a race like that. So that's why the safety car will control the pace. It will make a call about whether conditions are changing too quickly to start. In a sense, this is a race control's nightmare. You have rapidly changing conditions just to try and start the race. So it could be that everyone ends up on full wets, or even we have another delay. But right now, they're planning on what looks like an intermediate start with the formation lap behind the safety car. But that's the reason for the delay.
Mm.
Yeah, and another factor is, of course, you saw it yesterday in qualifying, any blockage of the track, let's just say the first 3 cars get through and somebody goes off at Sound of Ock, let's say Albon in the midfield, and he blocks the track, then the other guys have to stop. There's no way through necessarily. Yet the rest of the field has gone through. So then you've got another nightmare. So, there's a lot for them to think about. I wouldn't want to be trying to do the FIA's job at this point.
No, and I've seen the message delayed start again on the screen. So I'm believing that's actually further to the initial one we had of 9 minutes past the hour. So what should have been in 5 minutes to start the formation lap, I believe, has just been delayed indefinitely. They'll give us an actual time in a second, but that's just to alert the teams. You don't need to take your wheel covers off yet. You don't need to change too much. I mean, the TV pictures are showing it. We've had to move from the pit lane now, but there's tyres being moved around everywhere. Teams are trying to grab the wets. And, because we said how tight it is here, how difficult logistically it is to move around and how crammed in it is, this makes this kind of scenario even more difficult for the teams to handle because they have to move around so quickly and in such tight spaces.
Chris, give us your eyes right now. Where are you standing? What's around you?
So I'm in the paddock by where the drivers come through and do their broadcast interviews. So there's a TV pen, broadcast pen that is basically about 50 yards away from Rascasse. So on the outside of Rascasse corner, along as the harbour stretches out into the sea. So to my right, as I look now towards the circuit, I can see the back of the grandstand that is opposite the pit lane. And I can see the boats and the swimming pool chicane. But I'm actually sticking my head through Formula One's hospitality unit window because they've got a lovely number of screens in there. And that's where I can see a race control screen that tells me the messages from race control. Normally I'd get these in the media center, but I thought I wouldn't head up there and annoy everyone by talking non-stop like I am to everyone who can hear me. But it still just says delayed start. So that sounds like we are not going at 15:09. We're going to be waiting a bit longer until the FIA make a call on how they want to start this race safely.
And Chris, am I right in saying that this is for the race direction? Freitas, this is only his second race or so. I mean, this is not something they've had to deal with. We've got some very new guys at the front. You've got Herbie Blash there. I'm sure he'll be weighing in. But it's not easy, is it?
No, not at all. And like you say, Herbie's experience is excellent. He's a deputy race director. He'll be helping out with everything that he knows. Again, we've got the formation lap will be starting behind the safety car again. It looks like it's a message that's come up. I can't see if it's given a time there. My eyesight is not quite good enough to read if there's a time for it. But it looks like they're going through the same procedure they did about 10 minutes ago. But yeah, for Freitas, there we go. Yeah, 15:15, I believe it says, or maybe 15:16. That we'll be restarting because rain is still falling. I'm covered right now, but it's actually falling heavily. It's just started raining heavily. That rain they were talking about. But yeah, for Freitas, he's not got a huge amount of experience in F1. He does have it in the World Endurance Championship, and they're very complimentary about the work he does in that series. So I don't think this will overwhelm him, but we might see that he will have a specific approach to this kind of scenario that maybe Formula One hasn't had in the past. Because under Bernie, there was a spell where the show must go on quickly. TV companies have got their slots, broadcasters have got their slots, and they need to get on with the race. Whereas right now, safety's coming first. So the fact that we've just had this heavier spell of rain, it's not been for too long. It's lightened up again, but just that little burst probably meant it was sensible for them just to delay that formation lap by a few more minutes.
And remember that
I think
the physical layout of this changes so much. You've got the grid in one spot. You've got the garages kind of over the fence, around the back kind of thing. And then you have the engineering stand that's usually out on the wall is upstairs. And so there's a lot of added complexity with that separation.
Hey, Bob.
And keep in mind, with every minute that passes, it brings us closer and closer to the 2-hour time limit on this race. So, if the longer we wait to start, the fewer laps we're likely to get in before they call time on this race.
We're okay on that front, Bob, because we haven't started the formation lap. The race hasn't started at all yet. So technically we're on pause before starting the clock. So the clock still reads 2 hours and hasn't started. But you're right. As soon as that formation lap is underway, then we'll start. So it's actually, if I'm recording correctly, it might be 3 hours now, but it certainly before was 4 hours was the window for those 2 hours to be held in, if that makes sense. So we saw it with Spa last year when they had the delay and they actually paused the clock to try and get the race to happen.
Right.
But you're right that there's a window where if the race starts and we're running, formation laps behind a safety car, that 2 hour window will be running. But if the race is red flagged, then it becomes a 4 hour window that those 2 hours have to be completed within, if that makes any sense to anybody.
Yeah, no, makes sense.
Yeah, and that whole algorithm was developed in after Canada back when Jenson Button won and the race took almost 5 hours because of this start and stop and wet and dry and what have you.
Yeah, absolutely. That was such a long one, wasn't it? And everyone was waiting. And I think from Formula One's perspective, they were a bit upset because they all missed their flights home. They were trying to fly home Sunday night and they had no chance of getting home.
Yep.
Jonathan, what were you going to say?
Yeah, no, I mean, he's absolutely right. I'm looking at the TV pictures right now, and it is absolutely pouring down, heavier than I've seen at Monaco in a long time. How long it lasts, I don't know. But once it gets in, if it's not windy, and we'll turn to Chris on this, if it's not windy, it could just hang over the Principality, because once it hits the mountain, it just drops. And if that cloud is low, it can stay there for as long as it wants, unless the wind picks up and pulls it out.
Yeah, so the wind had picked
It's
up.
lovely here in
we were going
Nice.
to the grid. Yeah, we'll move it down there, Bob. We'll have it in the. Actually, no, we want it in the wet, don't we?
Just a few miles away.
The flags. It's not far at all. I mean, if I walked about 300-400 meters down the harbour and looked to my right, I could nearly see you. But the flags right now are very still, as Johnny says. So the wind had picked up earlier as we were heading to the grid, and in the pit lane, it was quite breezy in places. But now it looks like it's gone very still. So I've seen that the BBC weatherman is saying that this will be a short burst. But it's the latest delay was because they're going to do the formation lap starting behind the safety car again on full wet tyres. So everyone's had to change again from inters to full wets. And nobody wants to be on full wets, I can tell you that. I interviewed Mario Isola yesterday for the F1 strategy guide, and he said, intermediates are what people will want to use. They offer a decent amount of grip. They clear water quite well, but they also can wear down to a kind of slick state as the track dries. So that's kind of what they're going to want to be using. The full wet means you normally are going to then try and get off it onto the Inter at some stage. That almost adds a mandatory pit stop. So what was a guaranteed one-stop race, as Bob was alluding to a bit earlier, has definitely become a lot more tricky than that.
Couple of comments on YouTube, people just asking, why is this fair? Do we need to do this? But really, this is all about safety.
Yeah, it is. That you've got to sometimes, it's a bit odd, but you've got to save the teams from themselves. They would all be wanting to be, say, on the intermediate tyre, but they've not run in these conditions. These conditions have changed since they got to the grid, and it's not been wet at any point this weekend. So if they head out on inters for that first lap thinking, well, that's the best performance I'll get, but then they find some standing water somewhere, that someone could be in the wall in no time, and with all 20 cars coming through on the first lap, you could have a pretty nasty accident. You could have some pretty messy ones. You're probably going to get a blocked track and a red flag. So we'd be sat here waiting right now, but with drivers out of the race. And no one wants to see that when it's kind of completely random or completely impossible to handle. So that's why the formation lap will be so key. It's that little sighter. That's all they get is one lap, that little sighter to test the conditions or to get a feel for them, understand where there's standing water, where there's not, where it's slippy, which will be basically every painted line, of which there are loads here. But once they've got that feel, then they're going to let them go racing. Maybe we will have a full safety car start because race control will want to make sure everyone is comfortable with the conditions and confident, and that they are happy that we're not going to have that sort of first lap carnage, basically. But recently we've seen, I think most people will agree, we have seen a tendency to move away from a safety car start. The Formula One does try and start wet races from a standing start, just sometimes after a few formation laps to make sure everyone's comfortable.
One of the things we haven't mentioned in this is, folks, these streets were driven on just a couple hours ago, not long before the Porsche Super Cup series that raced just before. I think they finished up about 45 minutes before the race started, was scheduled to start. But this is open to the public after qualifying. They use it all night, and then it's cleaned again, and they put up the walls again.
Yeah, it's fascinating when this works. Go ahead, Bob.
The vision factor is going to be huge too.
Yeah.
The drivers, how well can you see ahead of you in case of an accident, so you don't plow right into a pile of race cars?
Yeah, absolutely. And also another shot I've just seen on the TV, which has alerted me to something that should have been more obvious. I apologize for missing it. But of course, we have a tunnel here. So in the tunnel, it's dry, whereas everywhere else is soaking wet. So you suddenly have this real change. And that tunnel is fast. I mean, they almost reach, I think, about 290 kilometers an hour was the top speed in the race last year. They get up to some really quick speeds in that section, and it's turning right. Now, if you're in there on wet tires on a dry track, you've not got the right grip. And as then more laps are completed, more water will be dragged in there and make it a bit tricky. So that's just a strange, unique aspect of Monaco that they've got to deal with as well. So they need to make sure that things are settled down a little bit. But speaking of settled down, it has stopped raining now. We've had that downpour, and it seems to have stopped. There's still plenty of low-grade clouds around, but the rain isn't coming down. So I think we're now in a window again where hopefully we can get away.
And to add to the safety situation and controlling it, they've got they've got right at 650 track workers this year on site during the race. And so that's a huge population for actually what is one of the shortest tracks of the year.
Hey, Chris, we've got a volunteer that said they'll come to all the races and hold an umbrella for you.
I will take that. I've managed to find a dry patch underneath a canopy in the paddock right now, but it's quite funny watching people try to stay out the rain that are working in F1. Like the Netflix crew are just around the corner from me, and they're shooting all their behind-the-scenes shots from a dry patch. There's a lot of Mercedes engineers who've run back from the pit lane who are hiding under an umbrella. A load of Alpine guests have just come through and they are drenched, but they're laughing about it, which is good. It's not quite the Monaco glamour they expected, I imagine, but it's going to make for a great race. And that's the one thing that sometimes this place doesn't offer. And when it does, it's brilliant.
All right. Well, it looks like we're about a minute out if they haven't changed the delay. I don't see any further delay. Chris, any news there?
No, I think you're correct. I think they're about to take tyre covers off, and send them around behind the safety car. So I could see the Ferrari mechanics kneeling down next to Charles Leclerc's car, ready to remove those wheel covers. He's stuck it in the first gear already. So it's a very tight grid. You get a lot of mechanics still on the grid while the field has to go away, and it's so tight there. But yeah, the race control messages suggest we are 30 seconds away from the formation lap behind the safety car. Everyone on full wet tyres. Let's see how this one goes.
All right.
Giddy up.
Well, I guess we're going to go ahead and go out to the BBC then, checking with the producer. And looks like, let's do it. We're going to go out to the BBC for the call of the race. Don't forget, we will be back after the race. Looking forward to this post-race, gentlemen. I know we didn't get our predictions in, but they wouldn't matter anyway, probably. So, all right, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll talk to you after the race.